explain what the presentation is on the drive. Yes, but to him.
Valeu. Você vai botar o slide aqui? Ou ali? Não sei.
Mandou?
Tem, tá na pasta geral, não é do dia. Ah. Achei, só. Aí ele não é um slide, ele é um texto, assim. Eu só preciso que tu role. É. E aí só dá um zoom assim na parte. Aí, legal. Um pouquinho menos. Tá 100% aí. Consegue deixar a tela cheia? Sim, não. Acho que ele não. Acho que quando apresenta ele vai. Não. Então, se tu dá um zoom assim, ele vai, né? Dessa parte, sim? Não, né? Então dá deixa aquele modo, só tira do lado assim. Acho que vai. Consegue tirar do lado? Já aqui, né? Não, viajei. Tá. Não sei. Posso sentar? Okay. Hello. So I think you guys, if you want to, you can open on the drive and see on your phone, and you can accompany there. So I did this yesterday based on a paper that I'm working with my advisor. On that QR code, actually, you can see the dictionary and information about Taurepan, which is the language I'm going to talk about. The dictionary was made with Museu dos Povos Indígenas and financed by UNESCO. So the language I'm going to talk about is Taurepan, which is a dialect from Pemon, and is reconstructed to Proto-Carib. It's a Caribbean language. Okay, spoken in Roraima, northern Roraima, and in Venezuela. So, what is the point of this talk here? What I want to show you guys. There is an ongoing process in Taurepan, which I think you can explain it in ways of grammaticalization, but I'm not sure. So I was talking to Mateus yesterday about this, and like, no, go for it. So since I was not in the course, I'm not sure. So I want to show you, so if you guys have any ideas. Well, so how does this go? So Proto-Carib is said to have a U marker that is used for first person, okay? In many languages, this U has created, there's a split that we have U for consonant initial roots, and for vowel initials, you have UI with the glide, okay? And this actually happens in Taurepan as well, or at least in my analysis, used to happen. And there is also a morpheme in a lot of Caribbean languages, which is just that glide, for signaling that a verb, noun, or postposition with which occurs has the preceding NP as its dependent. So basically, it's more or less like the genitive S in English, okay, but it's not marked on the possessor, but on the possessed, okay? Right? So usually you use this marker to mark a lot of things, and it's called a relational morpheme. I'm going to show more examples that are related to possessive constructions, because there's a lot of examples, so I'm not going to show all the relation examples. And like I said, in Tarapang, the first person marking ui, it's there. But what we have been seeing is that it has been showing erosion of u, like the phoneme, and then you don't have ui anymore. You just have the glide. So now the glide can signal not only the relator, but also the first person. So that's what I'm saying. Like, okay, so now making it look a lot like the relator. And how do the speakers deal with this? Okay, we have like okay. So let's see. Look at some examples. Pode ir até o Cyberpunk como título. Isso. Mais um pouquinho. Isso. Okay. So this is data from old bibliography on the language. So we had this German explorer who was in Brazil, in Venezuela, almost 100 years ago, and we can already see this is what's happening. So this is his gloss, not mine. So he states that this is a different morpheme. And you can see that it's eroding here. Here he also says it's optional for my eyes, my food. And for the relational construction here, we're talking about possessives. You can see that it's also there, okay, as a we found very similar things. We see this here, it's not eroding actually, but this is from Swigers and it's not a phonological paper, so I'm not sure, she's just not showing the erosion, but she thinks, oh, this is like an underlying representation or something. And here in Alvarez's analysis, he already analyzes the E as a first person marker because there is no more U there, okay? So when you possess the word for wound. And also in the possessive construction, the relational one, you still find the glide. Pode subir pouquinho mais? Boca da mata aqui. Okay. Now, this is a more recent paper by this Brazilian researcher, Katia. And you can also see the erosion here. She doesn't segment it. Okay, so we don't know what's her actual analysis. Okay, what is the first person here? But we can see that in her analysis, we also see that the U is no longer there. This is our data from fieldwork we have done in 2022 and some elicitations I've done with people from the community that help us with the dictionary. So what happens, we see the erosion, but we also see this going on. So instead of the glide, we start to see the allophone of the glide being used to express the relational construction. So when you go to that community, if you say like, oh, can I say Luisa Yewuk to say Luisa's house? And they're like, no, that doesn't make any sense. But can I say Luisa de Wook? Okay, of course you can say it. And if I just say Yewuk, what do you understand? Oh, you're just saying it's my house. So what I think is going on is that's the title of the presentation. Like I think an allophone is becoming a grammatical morpheme. Like instead of becoming first a phoneme, that's what it's going to make it become a phoneme in the language. It's starting to make a distinction in the language. Okay, so in the past there was no distinction. I mean, 100 years ago, and this specific community, we see this going on. Pode descer mais pouquinho? Okay, next page. Okay, there is some exceptions though. So since this let's say this phonologizing phoneme is still a new thing, in some contexts we still see it. There is some free variation, like when you're talking about high segments contexts. So for example, when you have ing, there's a variation. Sometimes it's the, and sometimes it's ye when you have to possess the teeth. okay, or the tooth. Like here, when it's the first person or the third person, okay, we still see that split that I was talking about. But when you have high segments like E or the glide here, okay, let's choose the more high, the how can I say this? The higher segment instead of the fricative one. Ok, do you understand so far? Ok. Pode ser um pouquinho? So my hypothesis for what's going on, at least what I have found in the literature so far, is what has been called homophony avoidance. So there is some literature about this. Some people agree that this happens. Some people say that no, you can't give all this power to the speaker. The speaker doesn't know what's going on. So basically what I'm saying is that speakers resort to this allophone to express relationality or possession of noun phrases, as the glide is used to remain solely for marking the first person, singular. Effectively, what we see is simultaneous phonologization of the and its grammaticalization as a relator. And so that's basically what I'm saying on the paper. It's like, this is new, we never seen this before, at least not in this family. And then when I was preparing the paper with my advisor, we found out some data about other Caribbean languages. That actually show that, that this homophony is not avoided by speakers of other languages. Like you have here, this glide in Yequana can be either first person or third person. Like they're just gonna get it from the context, right? My or so his or her tongue. You have this yeah here. So since there's some relationship between this and there's a lengthening in some contexts. So this is why they mark this with this little hat here. It's to say there's a lengthening. But it's not so relevant right now. It's just to say that, okay, you have this this heavy first syllable with beginning with the glide that marks the first person and the third person in Yequana. I don't know why, but Cáceres doesn't gloss this as a third person because for me, it could probably mean the same thing. And from her text, it looks like. But here she glosses like that. And also in Panari, we have a very similar situation. We also have the lengthening marked, but different analysis depending on the context. So you can see that the word for my arm, the construction for my arm, it's basically the same if you're talking about third person or first person possession. Okay, mais um pouquinho. Okay, so now I want to know, what do you guys think? Is homophony avoidance a thing for Towerpong? Did they only, like how can I say, did they only, like why have only them chosen a different allophone for this instead of, okay, let's just keep both constructions, right? Let's just keep both this homophony, there's no problem, like Yequana did. Also, what's also striking about Yequana is that they have a very similar allophone. They have a D that's not a fricative, it's just an plosive. And they, for the same context, and they didn't choose it if we can give this power to the speakers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lucas. So, guys, any thoughts? We can slowly go through that. Could you maybe, would it be possible to go a little bit up to some examples with the a little bit more and more and more? Please stop. Yes. Okay, thank you. So I understand that in some contexts it can be you as well, and there is no, you can't say whether that's the first, like my tooth or his tooth. Yeah? Okay.
Actually, this gloss is saying that it's somebody's tooth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do you guys remember we kind of talked about this sonority? Maybe I mentioned it. I should have. This kind of sonority hierarchy of the sound change, where there is there's a certain way in which the sounds can change, and generally they change from the more like stops into glides, not glides into stops. And it seems to be this kind of an idea where you just have a glide that would change into a stop rather than a stop changing into a glide. Yeah. And I understand that this is the only language where that happens, right? Yes. Okay. Um, well, I don't know the language very well. I mean, but from the data that I see, I would be thinking that maybe because this is not something that you would expect. You would expect the other way around, not this one. But have you thought of, for instance, such a thing as um, change under the contact with Portuguese of deconstruction? Like, I don't know how to say, el diente de cacha, I'm not quite sure, but like d, you know, just like this d or do or some, you know, this d and the that do. Yeah, but in Portuguese that's also the same, right? I mean, you don't have like el diente de cacha, el diente de jaguar. Like I'm talking about this off and yes. So I'm kind of thinking, I mean, because you're saying this is this innovation in a language. For the third person. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of thinking, like, have you thought about maybe um, not so much that the morpheme is being grammaticalized or like phonologically changed, but maybe there is a different process of this deconstruction happening here, at least like in terms of this y becoming a d. You know what I mean? Yes, try to explain it better. Uh, So because this is the third person construction only. So like this kind of idea of um, his teeth, the third person, like jaguar's teeth, you know, only for the third person. El diente G, Kasia, yes, if that's correct in Portuguese, that G is only for the third person as well. uh, like for you just to think, I mean, just to think what you like, to let us know what you think. What if that the that we see in the third person is happening because of the interaction with the Portuguese construction for the third person as well? What do you think? Just what your thoughts on the idea?
Mm, I'd say that maybe it can be reinforced by that because, of course, there has been a lot of contact with Portuguese and Spanish, which have this um, noun phrase of noun phrase. Okay, but I see. Okay, now it's starting to make sense. Maybe like, okay, we need to give it like different ways to express when we're talking about somebody's possession and my possession, your possession, right? His possession. So it's making the language look more like those other languages in the meaning that, okay, it's more distinct now when we're talking about pronouns and when we're talking about noun phrase possession. Oh, to conclude, I'm not sure.
I mean, maybe somebody has other ideas, but I would think because this is happening for the third person only, and uh, I would maybe think in terms of, like you said, the reinforcement under the possession construction from Portuguese. I'm not saying that this is an exact replica construction because it's not. It's still the old Caribbean possessive construction. But the change of the allophone could be under the influence from Portuguese rather than language internal process. I mean, this is the first thing that comes to my mind. So that's what I would say based on the data. But obviously, you know, I don't know. Maybe somebody else has an idea for this, guys. Because, like you said, I mean, just this kind of ambiguity. So in order to, like we talked about this in grammaticalization, we need to be able to distinguish the first person from the third person. Otherwise, they kind of merge and you don't know which one you're talking about. So that's very much the case. And now it's happening here by implementation of that stop the, yeah, voice stop. But I would say, based on what I see, that would be under the influence um, of Portuguese because it's for the third person. And it's interesting that it's that for the third person. So it's using the whole, you know, just it's using the structural position that already exists in the language. Yeah, it's there. That doesn't grammaticalize, but maybe there is, I'm not sure what I would be talking about grammaticalization in the first place. I would be thinking about some kind of phonological reinforcement or some kind of phonological change rather than grammaticalization because I don't see anything really grammaticalizing there in those two examples, especially 13. But if you go back, there is this kind of erosion that you talked about this u being lost. So once the construction lost that u, then it becomes homophonous, then you have to resolve the ambiguity. And I would say that, well, the grammaticalization, if you wish to call it grammaticalization of this phonological reduction is lost, you need to resolve the ambiguity, and that ambiguity is being resolved um, under the contact phonological similarity of Portuguese. That's what I would think based on the data that I see. Yeah, so anybody else? But this is really cool data. I love it. I do love it. If you come up with a different idea, I'll be very happy just to hear, you know, but based on what I see, this is what I would say. But obviously, I would have to know much more about the language, but this is what I would say. Guys, thank you so much, Luca. Really beautiful. Thank you. Who wants to be next? Oh, there you go, Frida.
Okay, guys. Good morning. I will try to talk to you in English, but I'm not fluent, so if you can help me. Okay. This is hypothesis right now. Okay, we don't have many dates, but the grammaticalization hypothesis about the future marker in wild language, A2P language. Okay. Next. Just to introduce, where language, the people from this, the people who stay in two indigenous areas in Rondônia state. In right now, we just have only one speaker in this language. So because of this language tended a lot in many years, or a short time. Next. So the tendency markers in wild language, just two. We have a known future, so the suffix t, and his allomorph, and the future marker. The future marker, the suffix p is infinitive form, and the noun, is a clit. No, A morpheme, no future. I don't remember the words in Portuguese too. Okay. Next. Okay, we have two hypotheses. Nogueira is a friend of mine. We work together in the museum. So her hypothesis is the origin of this future mark in Wairo. We have this, the possible origin, a nominalized constructions. We have the suffixes p, so a construction nominalized, and a combination of na. It's a verb, do or become is the translator. Okay, in this case, we have the nominalized constructions is I'm going to lie down, or literally it's something like I'm do my lie down, I'm do my bed to lie down. And the synchronic interpretation. We don't have anymore nominalized constructions. We have infinitive morpheme. This based in the study of Givon in 2016. And the no, it's not a verb anymore. Do or become, is a mark of future. So I will lie down, just this. But I have another hypothesis. So first, I will present to you guys the purposive closing in Tupari language. Sakurabia language the first language there. We have a subordinate clause, a purposive clause. We have a construction very similar in three languages. And a construction nominalized about the suffix z. In the morpheme no, a verbalizer by Galúcio. And in this translation, it's like, my mother cooked corn to make shisha. And we have the purposive clause in Makurap language too. So we have, again, a nominalized construction. And the morpheme no is a purposive. Okay, so it's like, she will grind or grind it in the mortar, then we will strain it to drink tomorrow. And while our language, we have constructions very similar. I don't know how is analyzed by now, but in my glossa is a purposive clause. So we have again nominalized morpheme and purposive. Okay, he's teaching us to blow rapé so we can suck in the sickness out of us. No make much sense in Portuguese too. So after this, my hypothesis about these constructions. So we have adverbial purposive subordinate constructions. These constructions are formed by nominalized suffix app, and the purposive partícula. Ai, gente, que coisa. Eu tinha esquecido em português também. Okay, particle noun. So, my hypothesis is we have some steps. So, the origin, the possible origin, a purposive clause, nominalized and purposive. So he was calling people over to drink shisha. And after this is a subordinate clause. But the second step is the subordination. So the subordination. Desubordination, I don't know if it is in English. But it's not a subordinate clause anymore. It's a main clause right now. But the Constitution is nominalized for the moment. In this moment, okay? It's the same example about Nogueira, okay? I will make my lie down. I will make my bed to lie down. So, okay, the next slide. And first, we have a refinitization of subordinate clause. The subordinate clause passed for another process, the refinitization, and right now it's not a nominalized morpheme, it's an infinitive. And the particle na, we don't know how, what's this origin. My hypothesis is a purposive morpheme for Nogueira is the verb non, do or become. And in this step, this is the user the use by the speaker right now. It's just this. We have a construction nominalized. It's a main clause right now, and the no, it's not a purposive anymore. It's just future. So, why are you farm? I will plant. That's it. E é isso. Thank you. It's just okay. It's just a hypothesis because we have only one speaker, so we don't know. Actually, it's not the focus of Nogueira. It's right now. It's just documentation of this language and try to make many materials to pass for another generation. So, I just analyzed this sentence, and because of this, we have a hypothesis.
Well, if you were selling it, I would buy it. Really nice one. Really, really nice. And I find it a really nice process of grammaticalization explained in a nice cross-linguistically common way of grammaticalization. If we could maybe go to one of the, like a little bit, go back, please. Yes. Okay, that's fine here. Okay, so my question is something that maybe you didn't say, and I wanted to ask. So in the language, the constructions with na as a lexical verb, they still exist.
We have three meanings about this morpheme. It's a purposive. In this case, it's a purposive. It's a sentence. I don't know when it's the collect, but it's a no, final, purposive. Okay. And we have another one, morphemes. No, the verb do. In all languages of two-party family. So it's cognate. It's cognate? Okay. And the no, just only in wider language is the future. So maybe it's an extra chance of the speaker to talk about future events.
So there is one lexical na for doing, and two ways in which it's grammaticalized, as I understand. So one lexical, doing, na for doing, and one for the finality, right, in subordinate constructions, and one for the future. What would you consider this to be an example, for instance, of polygrammaticalization? A question.
I don't know how to answer this, but
Because you see, I mean, just the reason why I'm asking is that we talked about grammaticalization in two different ways. That, like, the grammaticalization you propose, beautiful. The grammaticalization you propose is that we kind of have the lexical verb, then it moves into subordination of purposive clauses, and then it goes into future. This is the grammaticalization that you propose, right? Right? This is how I understood it? Yeah? Okay. So a proper grammaticalization. In polygrammaticalization, you would have a lexical verb, and one goes into the subordination, or like the purposive, and one that goes into future. So there is two different ways of seeing it. Like you're proposing one grammaticalization path, which Definitely, very much, yes. But like, would you consider, just, you know what I mean? I mean, what would be the reason to consider this na to grammaticalize on its own without the purposive? So, for instance, something that we saw in English, I I go, I am going to for the future, instead of the purposive clause. To have two different grammaticalization, not just one huge grammaticalization. Just a question. I mean, this is very good too. I mean,
Well, it's a hypothesis now. Okay, I will try to explain this because the speaker of this language made many tents in these years. So some sentences not the same sentence anymore. I think Nogueira analyzed these constructions like a future, but for me, it's very clear this is a purposive clause. Okay, so in this case, the step 2, we have I don't know about this verb. It's noun or it's a purposive, but I'm yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, because this is the same example that I use in another slide. So this is from Nogueira. Nogueira by Nogueira. And I don't know if this morpheme is the really verb do or become. I don't know. I don't have certain about it.
it doesn't have to, like, when you propose a grammaticalization from the purposive into second step, depurposive, so desubordination, then if in the purposive clause we have, just this verbalizers, finity, whatever that thing is, then you would also expect this to be here as well, because it's the next step. It cannot go from to do, to become, into finality, and then into fazer again, and into final. So you would have to keep this as a grammaticalized marker, not as the lexical verb anymore. But it's very good. That's just a small comment. Should be grammaticalized, should be the same as here, because it's the step number 2.
That's it, guys. It's just hypothesis. By now. And you guys?
Tem algum limite, alguma restrição de posição para essa partícula na, quando ela dessubordinaliza? Tipo, porque aqui ela tem essa posição final, né? Yeah. E aí quando ela dessubordination, né? Como que ela funciona? Ela pode funcionar morfossintaticamente?
Bom, a partícula não de finalidade, ela só ocorre após aquela construção nominalizada, certo? Naquele sentido ali, aquela glosa é da Fernanda, então eu não tenho certeza se aquilo é de fato o verbo não fazer. Para mim, a construção só foi dessubordinada e ali ainda seria uma construção de propósito, só que sem estar na construção subordinada. Em relação ao futuro, ele só acontece dessa forma. O morfema P seguido desse não. Quando ele atua como verbo, ele ocorre de maneira independente na sentença, só como verbo, sem a nominalização. Então, é por isso que eu acho que aquele verbo, não, fazer, não é um verbo. É, assim, ainda aquela marca de purposive. Coexistência? Bom, aquela construção ainda coexiste, a de purposive. Aquela ali, como eu te falei, eu não tenho certeza se é a construção com o verbo. Para mim, ainda seria o quê? Não, aqui eu só tenho esse exemplo, mas eu tenho outros. Sim. Yeah. So, I explained to him. Again, I don't know if this no is the verb, because when the verb occur in the sentence, he's dependent. Independent morpheme. And in this construction, we have this the codependence, a codependence if the construction nominalized, and after this we have this verb in this glossa, but in my opinion, I think it's not the verb. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very clear example here. Could I please see the next slide? Ah. And what is the reason why you're talking about, just like this finite becoming infinitive? What is the reason? I mean, out of curiosity, what is the reason why that changes?
Eu não sei como dizer isso em inglês, mas eu estou mesclando a minha análise com a análise da Nogueira. It's a mixed analysis. So, if for Nogueira, based in Givon, have nominalized constructions is very common to the process of refinitization to explain events of tense, aspect, and mood. He based in Givon. So because of this, we have I think in Tupi language we have only, I don't know, I think it's two languages. Caritiana is a mark of infinitive, and Waioro. Another language is just a nominalized construction. And after this, I think it just a strategy of the speaker to talk about future events, because Waioro didn't have any mark to talk about these events.
And there's one final question that I will have. Now, enquanto você roça, eu vou plantar milho. How would you say in the past tense? Enquanto você roça, eu foi plantar milho. What would happen with this future here? Like if you had it in the past tense, if that sentence was to be in the past tense, what would happen with this marker? Like how would you express this, but in the past tense?
Okay.
Would this change?
Yeah. Okay, just the morpheme T here.
Okay, but it's not
No. Oh, ok. Entendi. Eu entendi. Para saber se é uma construção purposiva a purposive clause in the past. Yeah, it's até eu vou tentar fazer esse tipo de teste. A gente ia tentar agora no último campo, in the last field work, we tried to do a elicitation about it, but the speaker was very sick, so we não conseguimos.
Because that would be the final proof that the grammaticalization took place. I mean, like if you want to comprovar, like that, this is the case. If in the past tense this na is different or is expressed by a different construction, then true. Beautiful.
I tried to do this because it's the same comments I received in my defesa da dissertação. Of my dissertation. It's the same question. So I tried to do this, but was not possible. But I will try.
Beautiful. And maybe just some data like no, for the time being definitely. I mean, lovely
Okay. Thank you.
Let us guys see how much time we have. Maybe we can squeeze one more presentation because I don't know what time I am not. Yes, perfect. Maybe we can actually just do both. What about you, Gabriela, or you, Matthias? Who wants to go? Gabriela, vai. Ven, linda. A ver. What I love about presentations are the maps. Especially about the Apolinar works for you guys.
So good morning, guys. This presentation was one that I made with Sid in the first encuentro. So it's just to show you the context about the language. The Apurinan people are located in over 100 communities along Puru River in Amazonas state. The Apurinan language belongs to the Puru branch of Arawak family, most closely related to Piro, Mantineri, Ini, and Inhampari. So I will pass to the next slide. The verbs category in Apurinan class is divided in verbs and simple, verbs with incorporated nouns, intransitive, transitive, auxiliary, presentational, verbs with incorporated regular noun, verb with incorporated classificatory noun. So this is based on Faculdades 200. So this is just to show you how the verb classes are classified in Apurinan language to clarify where my research is located. So the verb structure in Apurinan language, according to Faculdades, this is a conception of the global verb structure in Apurinan language when only inherent verb morphology is considered. Although the individual bound formatives that are inherently verbal in this language are linearly organized in relation to the another in a flat structure. They can be described as combining two classes of formatives with function as a sort of macro position class that are hierarchically distributed within the verb as is shown in the picture beside. So it's just to contextualize about the formative verbs in Apurinan language. And my research is based right now in my doctorate degree. In, I study about the non-canonical verbs in Apurinan. So my main objective is to describe and analyze how these structures are organized in the language in a morphosyntactical explanation and based on the semantics also. So this is just to contextualize the verbs in Apurinan language. Oops, sorry. There is an important thing about the role of the clitic person markers in verb classification. And Sid explained to me this because it's very complex. It's a very complex role in the verbs for me to understand. And the verbs in Apurinan can be divided into intransitive and transitive. So the subject can be marked on the verb by proclitics and object can be marked on the verb by enclitics. So here in blue, you can see the subject marker. In red, you can see the object markers. So this example shows just the position of these clitics into the verbs in constructions in Apurenan language. So proclitics and enclitic inflect for person, number, and gender, just in third person. So this is an important observation to notice how the canonicity of the verbs works in this case. So the clitics have an important role about this. About the canonical verbs in Apurenã, we can classify it in canonical intransitive verbs, which take proclitic person markers. For example, Nameteca, I run, Nizambaka, I'm tired, Niri, ni, sorry, Niripa, I fell down. So you can see the proclivity of subject marker in blue here in the first place before the verb. And in canonical transitive verbs, can take the proclit plus enclitic person markers. For example, I will show this example in specific, the third example. Nichar, it's a canonical verb and can works as a non-canonical verb either. I will show further in this presentation how it works. So nichar means I said it, and you can see the proclitic in I I forgot the legend for arguments for excuse me. It's in blue is the argument marker, the proclitics, a verb, and the proclitic r in Apurina language. So this is a scheme that we made to organize more how these structures are organized in the language. Canonical detransitive verbs take enclitic person markers as theme and oblique markers as a recipient. For example, Mikapu wara piratara sangiri, pitemune. Mikap taught his language to you. And it works like the same thing, the argument, verb, and theme in this case. And there is an oblique marker here, it's optional because the arguments in this case can be optional. For this reason, it's a detransitive verb because the argument can be there or not. It depends of the context in the language. So this is a scheme about the proclitics, enclitics, and oblique markers in Puranan language. Okay.
If the subject is not expressed, then it's still optional. So if we don't have this mipaka, it's gonna be optional, or is optional because mipaka is there? I mean, for clarification, just so I can understand.
Yes, you see.
Is that the lack of the cross reference here is because of the of mipaka, or
When it's proverbial,
Oh,
not when it's proverbial.
okay.
I can see
It's always a good thing to have your advisor in your presentations because he knows how to explain. So about the non-canonical verbs structure, we can see a different behavior about these formatives. So in non-canonical intransitive verbs, they are expressed in permanent states and take enclitic person markers. As you can see in there, the subject marker are in the end, not in the beginning when I was talking about the canonical verbs. So that's the difference. So the enclitics in this case behavior like this, as shown in the picture. It's a totally different behavior. In non-canonical ditransitive verbs, are marking recipient arguments as an enclitic and theme arguments as oblique. So it's very interesting for me because on my when I first saw this behavior, this syntactic behavior in the language, I was very scared, and I was trying to explain and understand how it works, and it's still kind of hard. But I try to understand even more about this behavior and trying to explain why and how this happens in the language. For this example, these enclitic markers in the theme and the I forgot the legend. Sorry, I have to check my. Sorry, deixa eu ver aqui rapidinho, gente, que eu esqueci a legenda do que eu coloquei. Só um momento, só um momentinho que eu coloquei no Google. Eu coloquei um esquema para vocês verem, inclusive lá dentro da pasta, sobre tudo isso daqui que eu estou falando. Tem um exemplo. Sorry.
She calls those things SA, and so SA, small a, and S, small o, because some of the subjects, this is the way, right?
So the enclitics are marked by the proclitic mark and theme, and the oblique are marked by the recipients in this case. So the other non-canonical verbs follow different patterns about the movements verbs for ina and sa, verb for go and come. They can take the enclitic to express destination or origin in locations. For example, the basically example is necessário, I go, and uinara, she comes. There you can see the locative state has uh, an important role to show where the this enclitic of destination are, and how can be expressed in semantically depends on the context where it's spoken in the language.
Sorry, Gabriela, that I interrupt. So you say that this can be skipped, right? And you can say Nissa, whatever how you pronounce it, or you can say Nissare.
Nissara.
And what's the difference between when I say Nissa and Nissare? I go towards something, or what's the
It's express the location where I go. If you are going or coming, so this have
But if I say Nissa,
So far you haven't.
where they are
Maybe,
used.
but so far you haven't.
There's no difference, but they speak like this. They had when I was doing my research in elicitation during the elicitation, I heard mostly this kind of construction. Even there is no difference in the sense, but they made an option in say like this. I don't know if there is another reason why, but this is mostly this construction is mostly used.
thank you. And sorry for
Okay, no problem. You can interrupt. So about the existential verbs, they can take enclitic marker for each single argument. For example, awara, that is it, the verb and the subject marker. So as like I said, it happens only in the third male person only. So this scheme show this picture show the whole the argument marking in verbs, the canonical, intransitive, transitive, detransitive, and non-canonical, intransitive, locative, existential, and detransitive verbs. This is kind of resumo. Is summary, the summarized scheme about all the things that I said before, just to organize how this enclitics and proclitics happen in the roots of the verbs. So, what makes a non-canonical verb in non-canonical in Apurinam? So, the verbal prototype presents the traits less temporal stability, plus temporal compact, plus spatial complexity and diffusion, plus concreteness, plus agentivity and mental activity. So the verbal morphosyntax presents complex aspects which along decades has been studied by the linguists. So the question is whether the properties involved in the scale proposed above can help to understand what makes non-canonical verbs and non-canonical in a Purinan language, and that's my main question in my thesis. So for to understand this, we have to know about the role of some these non-canonical verbs, and here the grammaticalization process happens. The role of lexical aspect, permanent versus temporary states. So Chagas and Facundus find the explanation for the non-canonical behavior of a subset of intransitive verbs. So we have three categories: standard intransitives, standard transitives, descriptive objective intransitives. So it's all based on the argumental structure of these verbs. In the first one, the only argument is marked by the same form as the subject arguments of transitive verbs. In the second one, the subject argument is marked in the same way as the subject arguments of the intransitive verb. And the second argument is marked in a distinguished way from the subject's transitive and intransitive arguments. And in the third, the only argument is marked as an object of intransitive verbs. So, based on this, where descriptive objective verbs are property concepts that express permanent states. For example, Una Chapeka, she's hungry, where hungry is a temporary state. And Mitaro, she's pretty, whereas pretty is a permanent state. So that's the main difference between how they happen in the language. So the verbs which are marked as non-canonical consist in intransitive verbs, which the only argument is marked by the same form as the object argument of the transitive verbs, and intransitive verbs which semantically demands only one locative argument that could be followed by a coreferential third person male mark in the verb object, and the transitive ambitransitive which admits a third argument which can be expressed by a coreferential mark of an object argument. Guys, I read all this because it's very hard to memorize all this, this information. So, these are some different role about the location as origin or destination. And this is basically what I said before. But here we have some other information about the same examples. For example, Nisaro, Unaru. We have to search for the locative of origin and destination, and this is marked by the enclitic markers in this case. So let me see. No, I said this all before, so let's skip. About the role of recipient versus team, there are the same examples. So about in relation to the transitive verbs, let's look into a prototypical um verb candidate in a pronoun. As showed below, for this bivalent verb, the recipient can be marked as an object and the theme as a non-oblique phrase. For example, o secano mancate. They gave me they gave me clothes. Sorry for this typo. It's they. So you can see the markers here in a different path about the canonical expressions. You can see the proclitic marker and the enclitic as a recipient in this case, and the theme about the context where this verb happens. Or the theme can be marked as object and the recipient as an oblique phrase. Notamune osekaru mancate. They gave him the clothes. So in here in this case, the recipient is oblique because they are not expressed in the same sense in the first phrase, but they have the same meaning. But the construction is kind of different because the theme in this case are in the other position, and the recipient is oblique. Although it remains to be seen in the discourse pragmatic factors, which would be motivated the choice of sentences above. So we suggested that the non-canonical behavior of the verb suka, give, is likely to be associated to its potential trivalent argument structure. There are other candidates to potentially transitive verbs in the language, but we need to do more analysis about this and do some different tests with the speakers to know about how it really behaves in some constructions. Because a sika verb in our hypothesis is passing through a grammaticalization process because he has one more meaning as it be expressed on the examples before. So about the role of both possession, existence, and being, we have the our verb. This is a verb which are attested by Freitas to 2017, the grammaticalization process in a pronoun. So our have three different usages in the language, as the examples below. And this verb is passing through a grammaticalization process due to those functions which was attested by Freitas. Freitas. So I'm just doing right now about this verb is I'm trying to describe how this grammaticalization process occurs or is still occurring in the language. How is the path of grammaticalization this verb passed, has passed or still passing? I personally think no one, all these grammaticalized verbs in pronoun is still not finished yet its process. I think all of them, and I think personally, almost all the verbs grammaticalized never will finish the grammaticalization process. I have this hypothesis, but of course I cannot be sure about this, but I think personally because due to the language contact with Portuguese, they show a lot of different constructions and different usages of these verbs. And our verb is one of these examples. For example, when this verb means possession, aua means have. So, Newara Shumag, I have fish. So the proclitic and enclitic markers can be noticed, can be perceived as it shown in the scheme. Locative aua, be at. Nuta angiro aware para can. My daughter is at home. We can see the same is the argument about the locative paper that this enclitic, sorry, are marked on the verb, beside the verb. So here we have the different construction where we have the proclitic mark and the enclitic in the verb. So in an extension, our means exist. We have the subject marker is not appearing. It's just by context. So here the verb our will have different verb structures depending on its meaning. These three meanings. So right now I'm trying to only describe how the grammaticalization process, how the path of grammaticalization process of this verb was occurring. So this is my main research during my master's degree about the cha verb, the role of utterance, be, do, and auxiliary. So the cha verb has been also passed through a grammaticalization process, according me. So cha is described as an auxiliary verb in Facundus 200. So in Sid's thesis, he only talks about cha verb as an auxiliary verb. But later, he noticed this verb can occur in 4 different meanings in the language. And we did a more specific analysis about this verb, as it's shown in the examples below. Letter A, uh, cha means say. It's a utterance verb. So here we think this is the main source about cha verb. This is the main source in the grammaticalization process because here we have the more lexical meaning. And here in letter D, the verb is behavior as just an auxiliary verb and have no meaning, just being just a grammatical item in the sentence. So here, cha verb, there is a large gap about how cha verb occurs here as an auxiliary verb and here as a full verb. So the semantical bleaching can be very perceived in this case because in a terms verb we have more consistency.
Why do we have an E here instead of an U?
Huh?
Why is there an E here instead of an U?
Yeah, the third person marker, male marker.
Because like I was looking at the things here that in transitive subject, a sub O would be an E. Oh. So I thought it was negative. Okay, please don't.
So in letter B, the copula verb, cha means be. It's like the do verb in English. For example, when someone asks you, do you want to drink coffee? Yes, I do. So the verb in this case, it works like anaphoric, in anaphoric sense. So they air, ele herda. Esqueci a palavra em inglês. Como é, professor? Ele herda. Hertz is. So this verb hertz, the structure of this argument of the verb what was used before. This is not a full example. I will show you later if you want a full example about the utterance and why how this behavior, because in this case the cha verb um, use the arguments of the previously used verb. So in this case, it used the this wa marker. It's a reflexive marker, and it's a very complex and interesting structure in this verb, because here I'm not putting the examples, but I can show you later. So let us see the proverb cha do. Oh, sorry, I made a mistake. The I was talking about do as in the sense of the same way as do happens in English. Sorry, I made a behave. So a mistake. Sorry. So copula verb cha means be. Ua caneracito uchawa. She's a woman too. So this, in this sense, this verb express uh, almost in the in the majority of my data set, the affirmative in affirmative sentences, its occurrence is in the final position in the construction and in affirmative clauses. So we have this reflexive marker, and this express permanent states in almost all the data. So as a proverb, sorry, the proverb cha means do, and in this case, it's behavior like the do in English. It's earth the structure estrutura argumental structure of the verb previously used in the phrase. For this example, charata kichaperinka. We did this in old time. So this is the sense about what they did in old time. It was fishing, eating, hunting. I didn't put all the sentence here. It's why my mistake. So in letter D, the auxiliary verb cha have no meaning, being just a grammatical item in the sentence. So here in this case, the cha verb doesn't have all the complexity in the proclitics and enclitic markers. It's just a grammatical role. So right now I investigating if this kind of constructions um, are based on a subordinative process or other kind of clauses.
I'm kind of wondering, maybe we can, kind of describe the grammaticalization process for this slide and the previous one, because it's a very long presentation and we're approaching the coffee and there's also the time.
I was just showing this to finish.
Okay, sorry.
So the grammaticalization course of cha verb is just doing my research. It's all the path that I found. Cha say moderate semantic bleaching, syntactic autonomy loss. So it's retake the meaning and the complements the subject arguments in active verbs, which carries a plus human trace. So here we have the cha proverb, intense semantic bleeding, periphrastic occurrence with the syntactic autonomy loss, just carry the main verb morphology. So here it acts like the secondary verb. Cha copula, total semantic bleeding, subject is no longer restricted to the trace plus human, and it carries a strictly grammatical formation, and then the cha auxiliar, where the verb has no meaning anymore. So it's all the about the semantic bleeding of this verb. So this is the source domain when we have the cha say in occurrence verb, a full verb, and the targets domains, which happens simultaneously on the language. We have the first stage, second, and third, and do into proverb, copula, and auxiliary. And this is the frequency about how this verb occurs in the data set. So for now, it's just this, but I have more.
I'm sure that we can talk about it a lot. I mean, it's a very, very detailed and beautiful presentation. Thank you very much. And could we maybe just go back to the slide with chat, please? I think this one. I think this type of presentation, well, I need to think about it. Yeah, but once again, just out of the curiosity, Gabriela, sorry. Out of curiosity, so you're proposing this very long process of grammaticalization for all of them, but what about literally here, something that I said previously? Why not polygrammaticalization here? Because this seems like a perfect example for polygrammaticalization rather than an ordinary linear grammaticalization. What do you think?
I think I didn't know before about the polygrammaticalization process. So this mini course was very interesting for me because of this. Because since you talked about polygrammaticalization, I got some curiosity, and I asked you about this because I thought this is a perfect example of polygrammaticalization. So I have to expand this in my theory and my analysis. So I intend to expand more this and talk about this polygrammaticalization process here, and also in the our verb. Anterior. No, o anterior. Não, não, já passou do aula. Aí, aqui.
Yes. Yes. So for this, what would be the first? So maybe I missed it when you were talking. So what was the grammaticalization here? Where did it start? You said. But what you think? Because I would think that just judging from other languages that I know from the area, I would think that the first stage would be here, with the existential going into possession. Uh, to me, I mean, as I don't know Apurina, but to me it would be first the existence. So I exist, then somebody exists. So the sun exists. That's why you would kind of have the polysemy here, right? The locative existential right here. Mm-hmm.
Because it's not in the sequence, but it is this one that is proposed. She didn't put in the sequence. She didn't put in the sequence, but yeah, it is the existential, and that's already in the work of Marilia Freitas. That's where it started, based on the idea that for something to be possessed and to be anywhere, first you need to exist.
Sorry, I didn't understand that from the
I was talking with Marilia Freitas, who did this analysis, and she told me she tried to describe this, but she didn't make the path itself. So we were working on it in 2018, and we made a presentation, I think, in acho que foi no Cielo. I think in the Cielo. So we worked together, me and Marilia. So she talked to me about doing this path because she thinks either the existential hour is the source domain, and the targets coexist with the source domain. And this is a very characteristic thing about the grammaticalization verbs in Apurino language, because all the domains still coexisting at the same time, but with the semantic bleaching.
Yes. Yeah, very much. So existential, even like in terms of the like marking, you have this esabo here. No, esabe here, esabo, esabe. Sorry, um, that goes into this marking right here. Yeah, that takes it and then it grammaticalizes into having this. Yes. Yeah. Okay. And if we could go back to the previous slide, please. The one of the cha. The uh-huh. Next one. Oh, próximo, vale. Yes, this one. Yeah. And what about a next question that I had? I mean, like, just like when you kind of look at the grammaticalization of this, what happens in other languages from this branch of Arawak languages, like in terms of cha?
We try to find some cognate forms in Piro and in Amparo, but it's kind of hard to find because there's no incipient. The data is incipient to affirm something like this. But we have some other verbs in Piro language. What happens is kind of similar about the cha verb. It's china, the china verb. So the china verb in Piro has the is a utterance verb, so it has the meaning to say like cha, but we didn't. I didn't found some more concrete about this, so I need to do more a more specific analysis about this comparison. I think it's important to show another example about the proverb, because here it's incomplete, the example, because we have three verbs before, previously used before cha verb. So the cha verb here in this case are all the argumental structure of these three verbs used before. So I have to show a more viewer example about this.
And if I might, like, maybe I missed it. Why do you call it a proverb if there is a lexical?
Yeah, it is because as I say, I need to show you another example more complete, because this is a proverb, but the example is not complete here.
Probably more recent developments. I mean, I'm still not fully convinced that there is the proverb, and if there is, it's not it's not so frequent in the language. So it could be a more recent development. But this is the cha form is the most frequent verb form in the language. We never find an elicitation. But as long as they start talking, it appears. It's the most frequent one.
Really fascinating. This.
Here you can see all the example where the proverb works in the phrase. So it's a discourse. So
And why not? And why not? Like, I mean, as an ignorant, totally. So please correct. But why not to see this? I mean, as a serial verb construction and some kind of middle. Because in other examples,
There is no attitude, no attitude for sure about construction. It's very circumstantial. The context, the text, calls for these sequence, but you don't find in the language.
because, for instance, I mean, out of my because for instance in bridging linkage like you always kind of have this kind of grammaticalization that where the last verb is summarizing everything that you've done and it kind of functions as a general verb. The question is whether this cha always occurs in these types of constructions in the word final position or verbal phrase final position. And it's kind of like the summary thing over everything that you've done in the serial verb. Asking, I don't know. Mhm. Yeah, we did. We fished. We hunted. We did. Uh-huh.
It's a little bit different from the auxiliary function, but it's just like a side function.
But it's different here because of the position, or how? What other characteristics it has that it's different here? Because I mean, from this example only, I can only see that it's kind of semantically generalizing, you know, the entire serial verb construction. How more is this different? How? What are other features that makes it as a proverb? Like,
And the auxiliary verb. There you get several.
okay, so it's repeating that.
In a sense, it's different traditionally, but also the summary meaning also different from the auxiliary.
Just because I showed just this example, and we have another one.
Yeah, of course. This is what I'm saying.
There is another example that shows it's not a serial verb.
I train, I stand, all that I did.
Yes, it's in this sense. And the other example that I found this verb being used is like this sense, not as a serial. And not always with a lot of verbs before. Just one is sufficient to the use as a proverb.
I will think about it, but this is really, really, really interesting. I will think about it and I will write you guys, you know, just once I have an idea. Really cool.
The coffee is ready.
Yes, and so after that we're gonna have Mateus and then we just finish the whole talk with 2 papers. So thank you very much, Katarzyna. Really, really nice. Thank you very much.
Oi, 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 gente. Só uma coisinha. As pessoas estavam fazendo outro curso da tarde com a Miriam e com o Matthew. Eles propuseram da gente sair hoje para jantar, como despedida e finalização dos cursos hoje. Eu sugeri um restaurante, eu mandei no grupo, eu posso mandar para vocês também. E a gente queria organizar uma listinha para tentar organizar as reservas no restaurante, né? Para a gente ter pelo menos uma mesa grande para a gente, enfim, sentar todo mundo, etc. Então, vamos discutir no coffee break, pensar no coffee break para organizar até o final da tarde, pelo menos. Era isso. So, morning, everybody. Uh, uh, the work I'm going to present here is the nominal classification in the Purobara language. This work is a part of my MA dissertation, so I'm working specifically with the morphosyntax description of Purobara, but I describe some nominal classification in the language. Pode passar. So the nominal classification in Purobara, how it happens. I identified about 4 morphemes in the language, that has the function of classification when they happen with nouns. So we have up for cylindrical and long. We have cap for amount. It's like a property to be found in the nature as a group. We have a for round nouns, and we have up for cylindrical and thick nouns. So that's the four morphemes identified in Proto language with this function. Pode passar. So I brought for you guys some examples of the first classifier. We have up for cylindrical and long nouns. So we can see that in the first and second examples, this form occurs in a root. Okay, he occurs as a morpheme in a root. So we have, and they classify the nouns for cylindrical and long. And this same morpheme can happen in the language as a free form, as you can see in 3, with that meaning. So that's the first classifier identified in the language. Pode passar. No, it's like wood. Wood. So we have cap for amount nouns. So they have it plus this morpheme has the same properties the morpheme before, so he can realize in the language as an affix, as you can see in 4 and 5, and he can also be a free form, as you can see in 6, with this fruit. It can be a fruit. So that's the second morpheme. Go. The third morpheme is a for round nouns. So this morpheme has a different property than the first and second one. So he only realized in the language in a form of an affix. So we have the example 7 and 8 for Palma vermelha, it's a kind of fruit, and Tucumã, it's also a fruit. And next. And the last one, we have the classificador up for cylindrical and thick nouns. This morpheme too, he only appears in the language as an affix. So we have the 9 and 10 examples for surucucu, it's a snake, and pescoço, it's like this part of the body. So, pode passar. So, some morphosyntactic properties, they show they have a derivational property, so they are involved in the formation of a root with the classifying suffix, in this form root plus classifier property. They classify the genitive phrase, so we have the example 11 here, and they don't occur in the language with the classifier, but when he is in a genitive construction, the classifier happens in the end of the construction and classify all the structure. Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Actually, I don't know if it's a kind of obligatory. They use they can appear in that position, but it's something related with the meaning. So big, it doesn't just take the morpheme because it's not a kind of specific form, but with the possessor there is a specific form, so they use the morpheme. That's the reason, basically. Pode passar. These morphemes are involved in nominalization of verbal roots too. So we can see in 13 and 14 how it happens. So we have verbal root, and when this verbal root happens with the morpheme, it's become a noun in the language. So we can see this nominalization of these verbal roots. So my explanation, or it's me trying to explanation the this system in the language. I think there is a unidirectionality process happening. It's an ongoing process, and we have different degrees of grammaticalization. So we two two morphemes, up and cap. In the middle, between lexical and grammatical, because we can they occurs with the function of classification, but it still happens as a noun, as a free noun in the language. So they are in the middle of this continuum, and we have the a and up, the other two more famous, in a more grammaticalized form, because they only happen as an affix and in the function of classification. So that's my hypothesis until now for the synchronic explanation of these forms in the language. What's my problem? Pode passar. There is another language that are genetically related with Puruborá. That's Karo language. It's another language. It's another Tupian language. And this language has a system of classifiers. So they have all the properties of classifiers. That's the 11 classifiers that Gabay Jr. describes for Karo. And he described it as a system. Okay? So, pode passar. Both languages show similar morphosyntax properties, so basically related with the position of these morphemes. So we have the first one after the nucleus, or the nuclei, as you can see in 18 and 19 examples here. And both of languages can classify the genitive phrase with these morphemes. So we can see 20 in Purvará and 21 in Karo, how it happens. Pode passar. So the comparison between these two systems, we have formal, function, and semantical similarities between the two systems, as you can see here in this table. So we have the morphemes. Pode passar. Pode passar. So my problem, actually, that is something I'm trying to realize how to explain, is what's the starting point. So it's more an explanation, and I don't know if I can explain this or understand it in terms of grammaticalization and how this process can happen in the language. But my problem is what's the starting point. So what were these forms in the proto-language of these two languages? Because I clearly have morphemes in both languages that has the function of classification. They have formal, function, and semantical similarities. But in Karo, there is some kind of properties that doesn't happen in Puruborá, and Puruborá has some properties that doesn't happen in Karo. So Karo, the classifier system in Karo, has a kind of agreement. They are involved in agreement process. So if you use it with the name, with the nucleus, you have to use with the adjective, and with the demonstrative, with the numeral, and everything that happens in the nominal phrase. Puruborá doesn't have this. And as the opposite, Puruborá has the property of derivational process in the language that Karo doesn't happen. So it's really functional. So that's my problem. What's the starting point? What was that in the proto-language, and why it developed in such a different, because for me it looked like such a different forms in the both languages in such a different process. That's what I'm trying. That's the point of the analysis, the diachronic analysis that I am right now to trying to understand. Pode passar? Não sei se tem. Yeah, that's what. That's it.
Maybe we can go back one more. Is there? No, go back, please. Maybe this, yes. Okay, so you're saying that in Karo, in Caro there is an agreement in the noun phrase. So you would have, I don't know, this beautiful Bico of Tucano, and you would have this classifier, beautiful classifier, and then Bico, like the Bico of Tucano classifier. Okay. And in Puruvara, then you don't have this. So what do you have? Like this, beautiful, and then noun with that. And okay, and why not to call it a classifier still, but a noun term? You said something like a noun term. Why?
It's
Because the agreement doesn't need to be for classifiers.
yeah, that's a pretty good discussion because, for example, the bibliography I'm using, it's a specific property that these morphemes have to be involved to, I can call them as a classifier. So they have to be involved in agreement process, so in the language now. So that's the reason I'm calling what I have in Purubara as class terms, because in the typological discussion, it looks much more than as a classifier, but I don't know. They specifically classify the noun, but there is some morphosyntactic properties that they don't show, so they don't kind of fit this, yeah.
And I assume that your idea, like just the where they come from, the origin of those forms would be compounding of some sort. Like I'm asking because okay, maybe first about the structure of the raíz in the languages. They are bound or they are free. So, for instance, in 18, this is this is a bound morpheme or is it a free morpheme?
No, it's about morpheme.
And all then.
In Caro, they are particles.
Okay.
In Caro, they are particles in 19 and 21. And in Purubora, they are bound.
Mm-hmm. So also in Caro, if we had something like this which I don't know what the form in would be in Caro, then you would still expect this only to occur as a free morpheme, right? But it would be necessary. Proper derivation. What is your take on this, CG? Puruvara.
I do have an opinion about the phenomenon in general. I think people talk too much about whether it's a classifier. I think that's the wrong question. I mean, it's not. I think the best question is, uh, it clearly is a sort of classifying or classificatory system. And the question is, what kind of, instead of calling it a classifier, what kind of classification system it is? So for me, it's a mistake to just call it a classifier. If you're only giving part of the answer if you say it's a classifier. Classifier is a number of different things. You need to specify what kind of classifier it is. There is a clear typology of a classifier. If it's a classifier, which type of classifier it is? I mean, I haven't seen her paper, but the last time I talked to Colette, I think she sent me the paper. I haven't read it yet. She has distinguished between the clear types of classifier. She has a typology for the classifier systems, and things that do not fit that typology does not include in that class. And in a sense, I think that's well-motivated decision because language like Burmese and Thai are the language there you find the class term. That's where the word class terms comes from there. It's based on the word of Mary Haas, right? Scott Delancey retrieved that concept. You have class terms and you have numeral classifiers. And some of those class terms evolve into numeral classifiers, but not all of them. So you still have both. We need to distinguish in the language. So there are the two things, and the class terms are very productive. That's the way they derive nouns in Thai, and they have it's the difference um, um, between Thai and Apurinan is that everything is involved there, all sorts of domain. You can derive words for buildings, for uh, different kinds of all sorts of things. And in Apurinan, we can only use parts of plants and some nature elements. That's the difference. And in Apurinan, none of them evolve into a clear kind of classifier. The closest thing is the incorporated one that looks a bit like the incorporated classifier, but not quite because it has some additional semantics involved, some pragmatics involved, like information track and so on. And it also, it's not obligatory. That distinguishes it from the incorporated classifiers. So if you just fit into the general category of a classifier, we are missing, I think, very important information about this phenomenon.
Yes, very nicely said. Thank you so much, CG. Yes, I mean, I totally agree. I mean, like those types of things have to be distinguished in order to see how they function within the language. Um, what is your take on this? I mean, like in terms of what you see here, because I also kind of had a question. Maybe I can just ask it now. You have four. You've seen four different in Poravara, but 11 in Karo, something like this. Yes. So you would think that in Karo those things are being lost, especially and some grammaticalized because they become suffixes. Because I wonder. I mean, all of them in Karo they are clitics. Seem to be clitics. I mean, I don't know where the stress rule is. If they are maybe two independent nouns, I don't know. So, and in Karo, they are all clitics. They are all independent forms.
Particles.
Particles.
We
Okay.
call particles. Yeah.
Call it classifiers, call it
Yeah,
particles,
exactly.
call it, I don't know, cats.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Okay. So your take is that we have independent forms, whether bound or not in terms of clitics doesn't matter, then lost in your language, well, in Korowara, then lost, and some of them that are lost are grammaticalizing into suffixes.
Yeah, that's a hypothesis because Purubar language, for example, there is only one new speaker. It's a language that has been passing through a huge obsolescence process. So there is a lot of grammatical properties of the language that we are not able to describe anymore because it's really lost. So that's my guess. So.
And like going back to the comment that CG gave, so if you look at different classes of words, where do those classifiers occur? Because you talked about this genitive construction, right?
Yeah.
But for instance, like, I don't know, demonstrative, numerals, all of those things, it's
No.
only on nouns.
It's only on nouns. It's only on nouns. That's the reason I'm calling class terms.
Man, my Thai is kind of rusty, but I can remember some examples that I think are very illustrative, right? You have classifier for all sorts of things, right? In the language, number of classifiers is very productive. But for example, the word wrong. Wrong, if it goes with food, wrong nahan is kitchen. Wrong, if it goes with study, wrong rian, it's school. Wrong, if it goes with water. No, it's Hong, but it's related. Hong Nam is bathroom. It's just it's a compound word, but it's productive. Anything's related to buildings, we have that the word is part of the compound. Uh, and a lot of the nouns of the language are derived like that. Um, uh, and some of them can be used in the construction so that uh, you can even find both the numeral classifier and the class term the same construction. So you don't want to call that classifier, right? That's where the class term comes in.
Yes. Is there a way of me going back to the sorry. Yes. Let me find it. Oh, I like it. Okay. So they don't have and this couple. Ah. Um, in any case, I would kind of see it like in terms of language obsolescence. Because I think there is a paper by Eichenwald which talks about language obsolescence and what happens to the systems when the language is in that state. You know, I can definitely send you that paper. But in terms of grammaticalization,
What direction the system is going?
well, I would assume. I mean, and I don't know much about the language, but I would assume that Caro, which Caro is still much more spoken than Parabora. So Caro has this clear system of some nominal classification, call it, some nominal classification. I would need to know much more about this, how that system works. Like, just in terms what CG is talking about, just where those things occur, what it's only on the nouns, what it's, because you're talking about the agreement. So there will be different morphosyntactic environments in which that system, it's, I don't know, you can call it multiple classifier system, you can call it whatever, just it's really up to the theory. But this is a language that is much more alive and a language which probably shows the original way things were. So you can kind of take it as the beginning of the some part of grammaticalization. And then, like you were talking about, where's your path of where's your path of grammaticalization? Yeah. Yeah. But still, I mean, like, I would like to know, just the occurrence of all of those things on the nominal root, just to be able just to say even more than that. In any case, those looks, like you were talking about in terms of clitics, so they are less grammaticalized. So like the clitic would be, just those equal forms here. What do you do, like, in case of this? Because I mean, it's right. I mean, this what you say, it's right. But like, you would need to know much more in terms of, just the agreement and stuff like this. Maybe, just the agreement in Porobora didn't really disappear, but because of language obsolescence, it's so difficult to kind of. Hmm. But this seems to be all right. Only that you would kind of, just have also a stage in which the original system of many more probably nominal categories, such as in Caro, they disappear as well. So there is, just this kind of specialization maybe, or loss, like what we kind of saw, like in terms of the description of je ne sais pas. And this pa, they had like 10 different pas, and then only pa was, so there is this kind of specialization process right here that I would like to see as well in comparison with other language. And yeah, and also if this happened, that this is less grammaticalized than this, you would also see some differences. Or because for now, for the time being, we only have the phonological differences. Yes? Maybe there will be some morphosyntactic differences if they are more grammaticalized. Because the only difference between these two is that one is declitic, the other one is a suffix, because one can occur on its own, the other one can't. Maybe there is more to that. You know? And one thing, you know, just coming from the languages of the Kataputumayo, is that some roots can be bound and the other ones can be independent. So maybe that's also the case, what you see here with those classifiers, that the question is whether all the roots have to appear with classifiers of this sort, which I think not. Because you only have 4, so you would kind of assume that all the language, you know, just all the nouns in the language just have to occur, which is not true. And coming from the nominal compounding, I would say, from this, you know, from this construction. I don't know if, in addition to this genitive construction, you also have like juxtaposition within the NP. You know, when you have noun instead of, you know, yeah, difficult just to work with language like that. But if you have more data, please send me a message and I'll be happy, you know, just to kind of look at this more. Really cool. Thank you, Matthias. Guys, or maybe you kind of have more questions about nominal classification, or no? Well, really cool. Thank you. Once more. Okay, guys. If I could maybe put my presentation, please. Really interesting case, Mateusz. Probably you wouldn't have like now comparing with those in here. So it's only for the animal categories, which says that some roots will be not unlimited. The only logical conclusion is that not all roots are bound to the animal. Some are free. And if some are free on the animal category, there will be free roots on the animal. Now the question is which one has to be occurred? That's why. Okay, you guys. Please, next. Okay, please, next, because we already had the presentation. Okay, guys, I wanted to talk to you about 2 different papers and provide you some data from the Kaketapu-Tumayo languages, because they kind of work similar, although Colette might argue about the Bora case, but it doesn't, we're not going to focus on this today. But I wanted to talk about nominal classification, such as the one that we kind of saw for the Karo and other languages like this. But especially nominal classification in Peba-Yaguan languages of the classification in Yagua of the Peba-Yaguan language family, because it seems to be the case that in all languages, at least the indigenous languages in southern Colombia, that this is the source similar to what we see in Yagua. And I think, you know, just based on what TG also said yesterday, what we kind of see for South America, compounding seems to be the source for generally in the world for nominal classifier systems, regardless whether you see them as the noun classes or classifiers. The compounding seems to be the source for many of them. Please, next. Okay, so Doris Payne about Yagua, very endangered language, also spoken in In the contact area between the Zaparoan, Tucanoan, also Boran and Witotoan languages, Samarawak languages, therefore, she's kind of putting forward this idea of contact. You know, we kind of saw this replica grammaticalization yesterday. So this idea of areal grammaticalization or grammaticalization area, yes? This is why I kind of want to draw in this paper talks. Please, next. Okay, so as in many languages, Yagua has some 40 classifiers. Each language will have different numbers, so it doesn't really matter how many classifiers the language has. However, many times what we see for Amazonian languages is that there is a distinction in the classifier system for animate versus inanimate. Yeah, at least from southern Colombia. CG was talking about the majority of the classifiers stemming from a body from the parts of plants, right? We will see that also in the context of Roberto Zariquier's paper that we're going to discuss later on. Yeah, but for southern Colombia, the animacy is an important difference, and in addition, obviously, shape, consistency, function, arrangement. For instance, there's a classifier for canoe, many different types of classifiers. We just general, right? Please next. So we don't need to even know. I think what was also interesting for the classifiers in Yagua in terms of animacy is that you have a classifier for dual, so two forms. If you could please go back, excuse me, sorry. I think, see if you could maybe go back one, back. Yes, yes, that was something that I didn't see really. Animate dual classifier, something that I don't recognize for other languages from that area, but that's something like, what's that?
For things that go in pairs in general, like eyes, ears, legs, arms.
No, because that it is about the animate things. So that's why I'm saying that it's yeah. Please next. Okay. Now, as in Yagua, as in other Boran, Witotoan languages, depending on the language, there is a certain classifier slot that classifier must occur in. And in many of those languages, you have this numerals and demonstratives. That's why I think CG was pointing as well, you know, just those contexts where they occur, you know, in addition to function and semantics. Yeah. Actually, it's really interesting because we have this Peba Yaguan, different language family, but this strategy for classifiers used with numerals is very much similar across the entire region. So you have one, then a classifier, and then one. So kind of limitative marker, restrictive marker. Very much across, I've seen this across 5 different language families, but those small language families, it seems to be some kind of a familiar feature, common feature. But the classifier has a special slot in numerals and special slot in demonstratives. And now, in the region, well, I mean, Yagua will have it with the nouns as well, but in the region, the languages differ in terms of where the classifier can occur. Yeah? So in Yagua, we have, in addition to nouns, we have numerals, demonstratives. In Witotoan languages, you're going to have adjectives, you're going to have pronouns, you're going to have, so there's many different slots in which those classifiers are to be demonstrated that they can occur. And that's very important in defining those criteria for this specific nominal bound form. Call it classifier, call it something else. Yeah? And what is quite interesting is that in addition to all those kind of, you know, general things like long and round, there is also a set of unique classifiers. Yeah? So I mentioned to you that, for instance, among the Witotoan languages, there is a classifier for canoe. No? Now, you can this kind of unique classifiers you see for the entire area, yeah? They don't classify like canoes in general, yeah, but there's a classifier for the canoe. So if you want to say one canoe, you will use the classifier, specific classifier for a canoe. Yeah, there isn't like a class of a canoe, like, I don't know, small, big, I don't know, so it doesn't really classify an entire group, but it just refers to one referent. Those are those unique classifiers, and many times those unique classifiers, they are obligatorily occurring with a nominal form, with a noun. Yeah. So the idea is that many times we have this kind of bound roots followed by that item, call it unique classifier, yes, and it's obligatory and they have to occur there, yeah, and then if we have a numeral, that part of the word we need to use as a classifier, yeah. So sets of unique classifiers that in Yagua as well as in other languages occur on numeral and demonstrative constructions. And that kind of opens the idea of the sets of the classifiers, at least for Yagua, that some will be much more open, some will be much more closed because the unique classifiers will be closed. I mean, we can kind of argue with this, just with CG, but I'm only presenting of what Payne is talking about. Okay, please, next. Oh.
Unique classifier for elephant, monk, and king. Those are the three unique classifiers that Thai has. And in Portuguese, we use only for banana, we use palma. But only for, I think, é só para banana que a gente fala palma, né? Palma é só de banana, né? A palma da palmeira também? Mas o que é a palma da palmeira? Não, mas quantidade, acho que é só banana, né? Uma palma de banana é uma palma, é uma penca. Yeah, for banana.
For banana.
Palm is
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. 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 Huh? Maybe it's like, just spreading into the system because of analogy of the palm of banana. I mean, like in English, you have like flock of birds. Huh? Yeah. Okay, so okay, general. I mean, like what Matthias also showed us. They have different functions. Okay, many of the functions is the nominalization or called derivation. So we've seen that. So for instance, in Yagua, in the Witotoan, Bora, and all those languages, you have, just the word for wood. You add a classifier and you get a stick. Either big, small, you can kind of define which stick you want. General functions of classifiers, yes. And what I kind of wanted, just to talk today about as well, and I think it's important, is that the classifiers, they can co-occur. So something, that CG was talking about in terms of apurina, and that's why I kind of asked that comment of, combinations of classifiers, because in many of those languages there, you have combinations of certain types of classifiers. And there's a certain way those classifiers co-occur. So in Yagua, in Bora, and Witotoan, like if I talk about Yagua, many times I'm kind of talking about Witotoan and Boran because they do similar things. You can have, for instance, for club, yes, you can have a club, chepu, yes, so his chepu, but you can't have his puche. Yeah, so that's why I was asking, just that question yesterday to CG about ordering of those classifiers within the noun phrase, because there seem to be some kind of general rules, at least for the Caquetá-Putumayo region, why certain constructions can occur and others can't.
The ones that occur, I mean, it's based on the semantics. So, for example, you get ku for, which literally means seed, but it could mean something small but roundish. You can get a pair is for things that have like a mass, shape, or consistency. But you can use both of them to indicate a mass that is kind of grain. So it follows from the semantics.
Uh-huh. But would you say then that some are much more general in terms of the meanings? Because for Witotoan languages, I kind of discovered, well, you know, but I've not discovered, but I kind of saw that the first classifier, if they co-occur like this one, the first one must be much more um, generic than the one that follows. Mm.
Could it be something like English adjectives? Like you can say black big ball, you have to say big black ball. Like you need, oh, one is for shape and the other one is for color and the other one is for purpose, for function. Like you said, there was one for animacy and number and then you have to be one for shape. Is there an order for that?
Would you have an answer to that, CG? Because that was one of the questions, you know, that I asked Bob Dixon when I started doing my PhD. And he said, like, I said, like, all those, like, with the Tuan languages, they don't really have adjectives. The classifier seems to be following that, you know, just have the function of adjectives. And he said to me, Kasia, there is a book I wrote, and it's called "Where Have the Adjectives Gone?" And that's where he kind of talks about those things. But very much, yes, yes. In that case, in Yagua, there is no adjective class. Have verbs, some kind of intransitive verbs, right? Yeah, the ones that Gabriela today was talking about. This esapo, yes.
If there is some, I know exactly this is apparently what you're saying is that there is there seems to be an order, but you don't know what is it. An order for co-occurrence of classifiers. And my question is not like, oh, if they are like adjectives or that, but if they have a particular order, if this is something that people have researched about it.
Well, that's one of the questions. I mean, that's why I was asking CG. With Tatoan languages and Boran languages, there seems to be some kind of, if there is two classifiers, the first one seems to be much more generic than the other one. Now, they are also, like, as we will see in Yagua and in other languages, there is compounding, something that CG also mentioned before. There is compounding. In Amazonian languages, compounds seem to be right-headed. Yeah. So if we have a compound, the meaning comes from the right part. So it seems to be much more logical that if there is two classifiers, the more specific one will be heading the one before. Yeah. I don't know. That's something that we can kind of discuss. It is the case for all the languages from around there. And I always kind of wondered about, you know, just the order of those classifiers, because they can't be interchanged. And if you interchange them, then you're playing with the language. You know, people are saying, hey, you're joking. Yeah? Okay, please, next. Okay, so Payne is arguing that the classifiers in Yagua developed through internal grammaticalization. Yeah? And her hypothesis is that they come from the noun compounding. So we had a noun, yes? And from that, we have classifiers. And that's something very much what we see across languages. So that's not something new, but I kind of wanted to show you what she talks about Yagua, because Yagua is such a, little described language, if you will. Well, I mean, there is work by Payne, but not too much. Anyhow, so the main hypothesis, noun compounding, classifier morphemes, yes? And she's saying, well, those compounds are right-headed, yes? So the meaning comes from the right side of the word, of the compound, yes? And they become reduced phonologically, a normal thing in grammaticalization. And then she's saying that if because in Iagua classifiers, you see that you can't trace some of those classifiers. You don't know where they come from. Yeah. So she's saying, well, the process was so long that some of those compounds basically disappeared, and what's left is the classifier. Yeah. Okay. Okay. I talked about lack of adjectives, right? And we can maybe skip this. Please next, because we don't have much time, and I wanted to kind of look at things. Okay. So noun and noun compound. You can kind of see this compound, X and tree. Yeah? The one that she's giving. And that's why I kind of wanted, to talk to CG about this. Niñuña is the classifier for tree and Iagua. I think it seems very much like something that form that is shared across, just many of the Amazonian language, but the idea is the noun-noun compounding, yeah? Yes. Okay, so we talked about, just this right most root, so the heading of the compounds on the right side, yeah? Please, next. Bam, bam. Oh, please, next. This is basically the same slide, but I repeated it. And then, just this kind of idea that is important, because the problem for the languages from that part of the world, in the Amazon, I should say, is that many of the classifiers you can't trace back. Yeah, so those are systems. Iagua has at least 40 classifiers. This is how as many as Payne has found. But many of those languages, like for instance, Witotoan languages have at least 120 classifiers. Yeah, so at least, and I'm saying because there may be many more than that. Yeah, and the problem with those languages is that you can't, for many, you cannot find the source nouns anymore. Yeah, you don't know where they come from. You can only kind of try to point the grammaticalization process from the compounds, but you cannot trace the forms. Yeah. However, and we will see that from an example of a Witotoan language where it can actually be shown that where some of the classifiers come from, because as I said, in Iagua, it's very difficult just to know where those things come from. But there are ways of tracing it, and I would like to show that to you in terms of the Witotoan languages. Yes. Please, next. Okay, and then Payne is also asking, because in the languages from over there, at least 4 different language families, one isolate, they have, many have so-called classifier repeaters. So classifiers repeaters would be some part of a noun, yes, any noun, that is repeated in the classifier slot. So it's not a normal classifier, but it's a repetition of some morphological item, yes, part of it that occurs in the classifier slots that acts as a classifier. The question is whether those are classifiers. I think that distinction is going to differ according to different linguists and according the criteria that they take to describe those things. But she is kind of, just pointing out to the fact that we talked about this compound. She's saying that in Iagua, Ninu means tree, and the classifier Nu means pole-like objects. Yeah, so you can kind of, just think that those might be, those phonological repetitions. Yeah. But she's saying, that there is a number of arguments that she's using against this kind of idea that those are repeater forms. Yeah. Because I think main idea is that those forms, they designate sets of nouns. Yes. So they refer to a set of noun rather than one specific noun. Yeah. Also, there is nominalization in Iagua where you can kind of use a verbal root followed by a classifier. That's something very, very spread out throughout the region. And she's saying the repeaters would not explain the nominalization. Yeah. And there's one thing about Iagua, something that you find, for instance, in Witoto languages, but apparently not in Bora, is that there is a generic classifier that classifies everything. So, you know, just this kind of idea, like you were talking about, you know, how specific things can be in Parabora, right? How specific things might be. There is a similar kind of strategy. I'm not quite sure about Apurinya, but if you kind of don't want to discuss a specific thing, like a specific characteristic of an object, you can use the general classifier ra, rather than, you know, its specific semantic. I kind of wonder how that works in Apurinya.
Apurian doesn't have it. Thai has it. It's ang is the word for thing. It's not used for people, right? But anything else, ang. It's the one I will use the most because I didn't learn all the classifiers, so I'm safe with ang. But I put in I don't think it has something like that.
So that's why, you know, like that's why I was kind of talking about, you know, just this more generic versus more specific and specific and specific, because it seems to be the case that there is this kind of specificity distinction among classifiers, you know, with this being, you know, on top of how most generic it can be. In Witotoan languages, there is also a general classifier ra, which means thing, like the one in Thai. Yeah. Please next. Thing. In Witotoan. In Iagua, you cannot trace where it comes from. You only know that it also occurs on pronouns, so third person. The meaning is unclear in Iagua. Yeah, but in Witotoan languages, it means thing. Okay, she is saying that probably it can be traced back to this inanimate pronoun ra, yeah, that I said. And that both those pronouns and classifiers trace back to some kind of lost lexical roots, because this idea that a lot of things you can't trace back, you don't know the lexical items where it comes from, yeah? Okay, so it kind of functions as a default classifiers. Please, next. And so the general idea is the noun compounding is the main source of the classifiers, and this noun compounding, as I said, in Iagua, you have about 40 classifiers, but the set is not closed. There may be much more, right? Because in some instances, you can use some parts of the word that function as a classifier. That's why she's talking about repeaters. Therefore, this set of classifiers seems to be open. Yes? Because you have 40 specific classifiers and more because of those repeaters. Yeah? That's why this noun compounding would explain the openness of the classifiers. It would also explain the existence of unique classifiers. Yeah, things like canoe and so forth in Witotoan. So she's saying, okay, now, so we have this idea of nominal compounding, noun compounds, but the problem that she also points out is if we are looking at grammaticalization, how come that we have nominal noun compounds, nominal compounding? How come that those nominal compounds, parts of it, the right part, ends up being obligatory with numerals and demonstratives? Yes? What's the path, grammaticalization path, that brings us from nominal compounds into obligatory occurrence with number words and demonstratives? Yeah. Now she's saying that maybe at some point it wasn't just noun compound, but it was also compounding with numerals and demonstratives. Yeah. So this compound, so the compound, the left part of the compound didn't have to be noun, but it also had to be, it could have been other classes that just brought it to this kind of idea that is obligatory today, and it grammaticalized as classifiers. Whatever you might think of this. She is also pointing to the fact, as we saw yesterday, that this kind of grammaticalizations that we see in Yagua, it is reinforced through contact in the group, in the region, because all of those languages do the same thing. So the question is, until where does genetic family kind of stop, and where does, you know, the contact, you know, just this replica grammaticalization constructions, where do they come into, you know? So this is basically those classifiers in Yagua. Please, next. And I wanted to talk very quickly about Muru y Muina, because I think it's a really, it's very similar to what we see in Peba Yaguan. We are talking about different language family, but if you're taking Witotoan, if you're taking Boran, if you're taking Andoke, which is an isolate even, even if you take, you know, like for instance, Resigaro, they do very, very similar things, yeah? Tariana does exactly the same thing. So I talked about, you know, just these people of the center. I'm not gonna talk about a whole kind of area. Just remember that we are talking about Witotoan language family, consists of 3 different languages. Muru y Muina is the biggest and the most powerful and the coolest, I think. Yeah, you have also Nonuya, you have also Okaina, but historically these were the dominant people in the area. And all of those languages, not just Witotoan, they have very rich systems of classifiers, much more than we can find in Yagua. Please, next. Okay, so very similar to what we've seen in Yagua, we just find in Witotoan, yeah? However, in Yagua, the process of nominal compounding is still very much productive. In Murui, compounding is synchronically not a productive process. Yeah? We have some compounds, but they are not, they are the only, well, there isn't many, but the ideas are the same that from the compounds that we saw in Yagua. So they are right-headed, yeah? And the semantics come from the right head, so from the second element. Yeah, if we have a normal noun phrase, the second element is kind of losing, it's not becoming, it's not a tonic element in rapid speech, yeah, so it becomes like a clitic, therefore it might grammaticalize into classifiers. Please, next. Okay, so I give you some examples here. I don't know, ije fue, mouth of the river, so something, you know, just something very similar. Now, idea for those languages is that some roots can be bound and the other ones can be free. So ije is a free noun, while r is a bound root. However, if you look at the history of the language these days, riño means woman. But if you look at the history, how all those different things arrived, this is actually a nominalization. Because I said to you that, well, we've seen this, that classifiers have this nominalizing role, yeah? And re, in fact, means to eat meat. And nyo is the woman, or is the classifier for female, right? So the female that eats meat, the main eater, yeah? Well, it has to do with some kind of cultural development that we can talk about it later if you'd like, but a female male eater plus hisa, riño hisa, baby daughter, yeah? Okay, please, next. Okay, so something that Siji showed us also for Apurina, Semantics, very much similar to the semantics of Yagua, so we don't want to just focus on this. Please, next. And something that has been called in the literature as multiple classifier system. I don't know what's your take on that, but I kind of follow that typology by Eichenwald, in which you kind of have the same classifier, the same set of classifiers occurring in different morphosyntactic environments. So here with pronouns, que, do, my, pointed one. Here, demonstrative, be, do, for instance, this pointed one, da, numeral one, da, do, one pointed one, interrogative words, ni, so which one, yeah, which pointed one. There is also, just this set of the demonstratives that have those anaphoric meanings, something that is also spread out in the Amazon with E, with the third person. Something, I believe for the Arawak languages, this is kind of unpossessed, yes? So if you want to have something unpossessed, well, in the Witatoan languages, as in Bora, you have, just this anaphoric E. It doesn't mean unpossessed because Witatoan languages don't have inalienable possession, so we kind of have ido, yeah, a specific, unspecific pointed one. You can also get verbs, so that's exactly that, especially with passivizing. So fetoka would be the one that is chosen, and then do. So you can kind of see it, that this is a multiple classifier system in a sense that my classifier can occur anywhere. So it has these derivational functions, but not just derivation with the nouns, but derivation with other things, yeah? I call those things headless nominal modifiers. Doesn't matter. Please, next. Okay, now, why I want to talk about this and why I kind of introduced this is that in terms of grammaticalization, there is two different forms. One form is the monosyllabic classifier, and the other form is the disyllabic classifier, yeah? There is many more monosyllabic classifiers and less disyllabic classifiers, yeah? And generally, those monosyllabic classifiers, they are more general in meaning, yeah? They are not as broad as in meaning as the disyllabic classifiers. Disyllabic classifiers have those very specific semantics, yeah? And you are still talking about one classifier position on the noun, because there can be different classifier positions. So I can, for instance, I can have nominal root, and then a disyllabic classifier and a monosyllabic classifier. No, you can't have that. You can have a monosyllabic classifier followed by a disyllabic classifier. So you can have positions on the noun, and those classifiers can be either monosyllabic, so the general ones, and disyllabic, so very like specific, much more specific meanings. Yeah, that's why I was asking yesterday about just this occurrence of na for the tree. You had like mina or something like that for the tree. Okay, and those disyllabic classifiers, at least in terms of how they grammaticalized, is they are combinations of monosyllabic classifiers. Yeah, and you can kind of see them. So, for instance, you have this disyllabic classifier beko, but if you look how it's constructed based on those monosyllabic classifiers, be for leaf and ko for those roundish objects. So you get a classifier, flatter-looking roundish objects. Yeah, but synchronically they function as one morpheme. Yeah, you can't. You have to use them as one. Yeah. Please, next. Oh, okay, next. Next. Okay. However, for many of those disyllabic classifiers, sometimes, although many of them you can kind of trace back to this monosyllabic, some of them have forms that are no longer transparent. So, for instance, you have tico, a classifier for very small things, tico, and it probably has this kind of ko spherical object, yes, but synchronically there is no classifier T anymore, yeah? So some of them you can trace back, some of them you can't, but you see that they are combinations of monosyllabic classifiers. Please, next. Okay, now, what's also quite interesting is what's been called classifier stacking, yeah? So, as I said, for instance, here you have two classifiers, first monosyllabic, then disyllabic, never other way around, yeah? So, for instance, you can kind of see here, a, fe, be, hi, a is above, fe is the classifier for the side, a function side, and behi is the classifier of a side, like a certain concrete side. So, for instance, upper side of the river, right? A, fe, behi. Yeah. So this is called classifier stacking, and there is up to 3 different classifier positions, and that's why I was also asking about just how many classifiers you can have on the noun, because it's also very uncommon to have 3 types of classifiers occurring, 3 positions filled. Yeah, but some are. So, for instance, nominalizations where you have quera beniko, in which you have right classifier, neutral classifier, classifier leaf, and classifier for plain thin things. So that's classifier stacking. Yeah? And now, if you kind of think, like, just because we talked about compounding, we talked about all those different things, generally, as I said, classifiers are, disyllabic classifiers come from monosyllabic classifiers, and probably those disyllabic classifiers precisely come from the classifier stacking onto the word. Please, next. So that would be the grammaticalization path for disyllabic classifiers. Pam, 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 pam. Please, next. Want to go quickly? Yes? Now, what is really cool, just to further kind of strengthen the argument, what's the origin of those classifiers, is something that we've seen for Yagua as well. In Yagua, Payne was talking about repeaters. Now, in Murui, there are repeaters. There are classifiers repeaters. So basically parts of the word that act as classifiers, but they are not classifiers. Yeah? Well, sort of classifiers. And you can basically see them from loan words. Yeah? That's one of the environments where you can actually see them. So, for instance, I thought that I gave, this example of semana in Spanish. Semana. Now, if you want to say 1 week, yeah, you would take 2 final syllables from semana. So you would have semana mana, and then you would add a root for 1. So you would have 1 mana, damana, 1 week. Yeah, and that's a very clear origin where those classifier repeaters come from, because you can do that everywhere with Spanish words, and also by analogy, that's precisely what you do with the words in the language, not just Spanish loan words. Now, what is also interesting, I think, is the semantics of those repeaters. They can only be done with inanimate nouns. Animate nouns can't enter into this classifier repeater category. And you can see that in other languages as well. Tariana has also repeaters, but only the inanimate ones. Yeah? So that's the origin of some of those classifiers. And I would say that's the origin of the unique classifiers that we see in the language or across the languages. Okay, please, next. Yeah. And it's really cool, because we are talking about, just this kind of inhibition against lexical borrowing. Now, in many of the languages from there are borrowings. For instance, the very pan-Amazonian word atawa, which comes from Quechua, which means pollo, frango. Yeah? Now, there is a classifier tawa in Murui, which functions as a normal classifiers, yeah, for pollos. Well, is it a classifier? Is it a repeater classifier that survived in the language, yeah? So the origin of classifiers in Witotoan languages is compounding, and by analogy, repeater classifiers based on, you know, what the compounds do. Please, next. And I also wanted to say that what is quite interesting for those repeaters is that they are very much semantically dependent on the context, because you can't understand what you're talking about, because you see those reference are so unique. Yeah, I mean, if we have a unique classifier, yeah, you need to know what that referent is. It can't be just any kind of. If I have da mana, I need to know what mana means as a speaker, as a listener, right? I need to know what mana is. I mean, which mana? What am I talking about? Spanish? Am I talking about something that is in the language that ends with mana? What is mana? So they are very much context dependent, and you need to know the context. So for instance, we have the word grabadora in Spanish, but we also have the word computadora. What is interesting about those two words is that they all end with the word dora. Yeah, so grabadora, computadora, dora. If I say one dora, what is being understood? One computer or one recorder? So they are very much context dependent. And that's also, you know, just in this kind of origin of the unique classifiers in the language. Yes, just keep this in mind. Please, next. Okay, please, next. I want to go quickly. I already talked about semana, so I was quicker than my slides. Please, next. Yes, so generally just to kind of more support the idea of the lexical roots from compounding into repeaters into classifiers, especially that thing of the repeater into classifier, yeah? At least for the monosyllabic forms in the language, yeah? And something that also Payne was talking about, I think what Seifert talks about, what everybody talks about, this type of constructions is a feature of areal grammaticalization. So we can kind of go back to this idea of replica grammaticalization for the entire region, rather than specific and, you know, just rather than specific developments within the Witotoan language family, of within the Peba-Yaguan. No, it's this kind of idea of this borrowing of the structure of, you know, grammaticalizing the structure, not borrowing of the structure, but that would be calking, but grammaticalization based on the structure found in the area. And that's why we can explain, at least Northwest Amazonia, the classifiers of Northwest Amazonia, because of this kind of grammaticalization that is being replicated, you know, a replica grammaticalization that we discussed yesterday. Okay, I think that's it. Please, next. Yeah, okay. Guys, I don't know, because we kind of have to finish. I had, you know, just this also grammaticalization of body parts. And I also wanted, you know, just to talk about grammaticalization of possessive constructions and so forth. But I don't think we will be able to talk about this. So you can kind of look at this in your free time. And yeah, and I wanted to kind of thank you for all this time that you spent with me over the last 5 days. Yesterday I was exhausted, really, like, you know, just when I was working on this. But I'm very, very happy that I've met you. And Gabriela and Siri sent some papers that I also put onto the drive that like Siri was talking about compounding, about, you know, just different paths of nominal classifications and so forth for Aporina. Really, really interesting. I invite you just to look at this. There's also papers that Gabriela put onto the drive, Garifuna, but also other things. So please have a look. When you look to when it comes to grammaticalization of all those different things in Amazonian languages, I think we can spend an entire semester talking about it rather than just a few days. And maybe next time at Amazonicas in Lima, if I can, maybe we can meet and discuss grammaticalization more, or maybe we can focus on things that is much more interesting. I don't know, just up to you guys. So if you ever want to have a discussion or have any kind of question, so please let me know. There is my email address that you can also see in the drive. This is, you know, those things on Google Drive that CD yesterday sent me. The reference list, the reference list from Gabriela as well. So have a look, guys, and thank you very much. And yeah, and I'm very happy that I spent the week here and got to know you. Thank you.